present here. I am Saurabh Sonwani, an early career research career representative of iLEAPS and the convener of this program. With me are co-conveners Pallavi Saxena and Samina Shamsuddin, our scientific steering committee member of iLEAPS and iLEAPS IPO respectively. We welcome you all to our 11th episode of Drive with iLEAPS on the Wheel of Science, a global interview series. Today, our guest is Dr. Peter van der Beek, who is a professor in general geology at the University of Potsdam in Germany. He's also a president of European Geoscience Union, EGU. However, before introducing him, I would like to say a few words about iLEAPS. iLEAPS stands for Integrated Land Ecosystem Atmosphere Process Study. It is a global research project of Future Earth. It seeks to provide an understanding about how interacting physical, chemical, and biological process transport and transform energy and matter through the atmosphere interface. Like other Future Earth global research projects, iLEAPS is a network to link iLEAPS scientists to key societal challenges related to health, biodiversity, climate, food, and fuel security, and ultimately to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Important initiative of iLEAPS is a promotion of leadership in science and capacity building in developing countries, as well as through their early career scientist network by hosting workshops, ensuring timely and relevant science to be available through their website and training programs. Recently, we conducted Earth and Environment Day Series 2021-22 targeting South Asia. We also organized iLEAPS Light Conference 2022, iLEAPS Postflux Conference 2023. We have also successfully conducted a Global Curriculum Series 2022, 23, 24, and currently it is also going on in 25. We are also actively convening several sessions in EGU, SRI from past a few years, and recently conducted a session in IGAC and SOLAS 2024. So, as we know that there are several challenges faced by researchers in different fields of the science and technology, basically with ECRs if we consider. Thus, a motivation is always required to drive the enthusiasm to carry forward the research. The key to motivate is to follow the footsteps and journey of renowned and esteemed researchers and academicians that help to set a remarkable goal. So this understanding has been behind this program to provide researchers, especially ECRs, an opportunity to imbibe knowledge, inspiration, and zeal to conduct their research in a direction that is fruitful for the welfare of the science and society. So with this brief introduction of iLEAPS, it's time to start our program with our guest, Professor Beek, who has had a remarkable journey in the field of geology, geomorphology, geochemistry, and more. So now here I would like to request Samina to introduce Professor Peter van der Beek. Now, Samina, over to you.
Thank you, Saurabh. That was a great introduction about iLEAPS and all. And I also would like to thank Professor van der Beek for accepting this invitation. And it's my pleasure to introduce you with a short biography. Dr. van der Beek is a professor of general geology at the University of Potsdam, Germany, and president of European Geosciences Union. He earned his PhD at the Free University of Amsterdam, followed by a postdoctoral fellowship in Australia, before joining the University of Grenoble in France as assistant professor. Over more than 2 decades in Grenoble, he advanced to the position of full professor. In 2020, he moved to Potsdam to take up his role. Professor van der Beek's research explores the long-term evolution of landscapes and the factors controlling erosion rates and relief development over geological timescales. He applies quantitative methods such as thermochronology and cosmogenic nuclides to reconstruct erosion histories, which he integrates with numerical models to investigate the drivers of erosion and topographic change. His current work, supported by an ERC Advanced Grant, focuses particularly on glacial erosion and its influence on mountain relief. His engagement with the European Geophysical Union began over a decade ago when he was elected president of the Geomorphology Division, a role he held until 2019. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, he chaired the program committee, leading the organization of the 2021 and 2022 General Assemblies. These experiences helped shape the development of the General Assembly in its current form. In April 2024, he was elected president of the EGO at the General Assembly in Vienna. Through the EGU platform, Professor van der Beek is committed to strengthening the Union's forward-looking agenda on issues such as equality, diversity and inclusion, open science, sustainable meetings, and enhancing outreach to policymakers, educators, and wider public. So we are glad to welcome you to the interview series. Welcome to this. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's a pleasure to speak to you this afternoon.
So thank you so much, Professor Beek, for accepting our invitation. And now we are going to start our interview formally. So starting with your career journey. So please let us know about your education, career path, and collaboration that have helped you in your current role.
Yeah, thank you. So Samina already outlined a little bit my career path and education. And if you think back about what has helped me and what has gotten me to the place I am now, it's often for a part serendipity, luck, and opportunities that presented themselves. So I studied geosciences, geology in Amsterdam, and during my undergraduate and also my master's degree, I was mostly interested in quite hard rock geology and metamorphic, doing fieldwork in metamorphic areas such as the Baltic Shield in Finland. And then, so the first opportunity presented itself when I was proposed a PhD position at the Free University in Amsterdam on a subject that was quite different. And when I started, that's when I started working with thermochronology, which I really didn't know that much about beforehand, but I discovered that field during my PhD and enjoyed it quite a bit, and saw the potential strengths of it. And so again, after my PhD, I was looking around for a few next opportunities, and I got this possibility to do a postdoc in Australia, where the focus was a little bit different. It was more on numerical modeling of landscape evolution, and it's something that I had started to see during my PhD, that was actually an important aspect. My PhD was still quite tectonics oriented, but I was seeing that the surface processes were really important to interpret the kind of data, the thermochronology data that I had. So I decided to go into that direction and worked for a couple of years at the ANU, the Australian National University, on numerical modeling and surface process modeling, which again was something that was quite new for me. Then after that time, I was looking to come back to Europe, and again, it was sort of just an opportunity that presented itself with this position in Grenoble that opened, and that was really, that looked like it was quite cut out for me. And so I applied to that position and obtained it, and so moved to France and started working in Grenoble. And from there, I started working much more in mountain belts. That was really the focus of Grenoble. So in the Alps and also in Himalaya, and starting to work in India and Nepal, and having quite a few collaborations there. And so, yeah, and then my final move, so about 5 years ago, came partly for personal reasons. I had met my wife, my current wife, who is working here also in Potsdam at the German Research Center for Geosciences, the GFZ, and we were trying to find a place where we could be together, and this opportunity again opened itself in Potsdam to take up this professorship, which I did, and I feel quite happy with the move in Potsdam. and happy to develop my further research here. So that's more like about my research career. I think we can maybe talk about the second career within EGU later
on. Thank you, Professor, for sharing your an excellent journey right from the core science to modeling to the serving a geoscience community like EGU. So that is a inspiring journey, especially for the ECRs to learn many more things by having different kind of exposure to learn better and to have the different opportunities to build their career in different domains. So since you have mentioned some of the research related things, so Professor Beek, we have came across many of your excellent publications, and that basically focus on decoding landscape evolution over the million-year time scale, and your role as then after you are also having a role as a EGU president that required navigating immediate pressing issues in science policies and community building. So how does this perspective of deep time influence your approach to leading an organization focused on present and future of geoscience?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very interesting question. Sorry. That's a very interesting question. Maybe first let me talk a little bit about my involvement in EGU and how I got there. So I had been, as you said, I was initially elected as division president for geomorphology about, well, just over 10 years ago now. And so that's, I before being involved as many, you know, I was maybe still considered myself nearly an early career researcher at that point, and had been involved as a convener and had been involved in the science team in the geomorphology division. And then the president at the time just came to see me and asked me if I had considered standing for president of the division. And so after thinking about that a little bit, well, why not? I think that would be quite interesting. And so stood for election and got elected. And that really opened up quite a new world for me because when you get to then the EGU council and the interact with all the other division presidents and the executive, you really are exposed to a very broad swath of the geosciences in its broadest form. And so people from all over Europe, all over the world, from all different disciplines within the geosciences, and that really expands, I think, both your network, but also your vision, like really quite tremendously. And I must say, I tremendously enjoyed that experience, being part of the EGU Council. And so from there, when my term as division president was over, again, I was approached with the question of whether I would consider standing as for being the chair of the program committee. So that's an appointed position, not an elected one. And I thought, why not? I would like to continue this experience, and so I did that. And that was quite challenging because, as you mentioned, that was during the pandemic years, and so we had to really invent quite a lot of new things. And so after that 2-year stint, I did need a little break, and so gave up that position. But then again, there was this question of standing for EGU president, and I was talking to people, and this idea came up, and I thought, well, I think this is now a good time in my career to do this, and so stood for president and was elected a couple of years ago now. So to come back to your question, it's a very good one. I think It's true that my perspective is more on the longer term, the longer time scales. I think that is quite important. Having these different time scales in view and understanding the evolution of the Earth, also on these longer time scales, when we think about like the current pressing problems, it helps us, for instance, to see analogues in the geological past of some of the things that are happening now, even though these analogues are obviously imperfect, but we can still use them to potentially better understand what the things that are going on now, and also to better predict how the system might evolve in the future. I think it is really important, and I've always had this in mind, even though when one does like me more maybe fundamental research, to always keep in mind the importance of the geosciences for society. And that's also when we teach our students, of course, there's only a minority that will continue in an academic career, and the majority will go on into other careers where they are more directly involved in society and economics, etc. So I do think, and it's really a drive for me to make the general public understand the importance of geosciences for society and the types of problems that the geosciences can solve, and that's very broad, obviously, climate change, but also resources, the energy transition, biodiversity, natural hazards and risks. There are so many fields where the geosciences are really of primary importance, and I think it is really important that both policymakers and decision makers, but also the general public, understand that, and that's something that drives me also as president of EGU.
Yeah, that's great. As we understood that you were earlier involved in very potentially involvement with the running the research group, and now you are having a very significant contribution and running the international body like EGU. That is very remarkable and fascinating. And was this a conscious career goal, or and what has been the most surprising or challenging aspect of moving from the focus of running a lab to running a scientific society? So, yeah.
So no, it was not a conscious career goal. It sort of grew as I got involved in EGU, and at every step I was thinking, do I want to do this? And thinking about that, the answer was yes. I'm really quite interested in this opportunity, and in this way also of maybe being useful for the community. So it was definitely not a conscious career goal. It was really something that grew, and of course there's, you can put yourself up, be nominated or nominate yourself. You also still have to get elected, of course. So that's that part of the question. What was surprising or challenging? Again, I think I mentioned that maybe surprising or eye-opening was the breadth of people you meet, and the people doing like really very, very different things from very different institutions, and that is something that I've really enjoyed, like really opening up my own vision of the geosciences and my own network by having that opportunity to meeting such an incredible variety of people. So that was something extremely positive. Challenging, yes. Well, there have been challenges. I think the main one maybe is handling people. We're often, there's often somewhat sensitive issues or that might come up, or things where people feel very strongly about. And so navigating that and making sure that within a council or within that community, all voices are heard, but also no voices become too dominant. Right? And so making sure that yes, that everybody feels heard and feels that their arguments are heard, but also at the same time that people don't try to push their arguments on the community or on a group of people. So, I mean, and that is something that is more important, I think, in such a group as an EGU council than in your own research group. So.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting so many important things. And yes, we understand that running such a very big group community is a very tedious task, and the people having with different kind of the background, having different opinion and different priorities, and settling all of them at the same level, that is a very challenging task. And yes, thanks for highlighting the things. It will be very much helpful for the people who are really interested to join such kind of the community in the future, and uh, maybe in the different discipline. So further, as in president of EGU, what are your goals and priorities? And uh, you can also highlight if the recent initiative that you have taken into this regard that may be beneficial for the advancement of the geoscience and society as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that question. Maybe first of all, let me point out that obviously it's not a job that I do myself. I mean, I am the president at the moment, but there is we have an executive board that works very closely together, and we also have, of course, the EGU office with the professionals who are working there, who are really doing a lot to have the union go in the right direction. So I really don't want to make this seem as it's all my achievement or anything. But goals and priorities, I think a main goal and priority is to make the union more robust and to have a clear strategic vision of where we want to go and where we want to be maybe in 5 years from now. We had started that work prior to the pandemic, but then, of course, with the pandemic, that sort of uprooted quite a few things, and we really, as a union, were basically covering the immediate needs of organizing the next General Assembly, for instance, etc. And so, and then also just after my election, there was a bit of a leadership crisis as well, and I actually had to step in a bit earlier than expected. So all of that sort of distracted from the longer term vision and the longer term goals of the union. So I think for me that is important that we think about that strategic vision, those strategic goals. What do we want to be as a union? Where do we want to go? What are our values? What are that we want to really carry, etc. So there's quite a bit of work there, which is not always the most exciting, but it is very important. Maybe initiatives. I think the one I'm really quite proud of, and that I can say was really where I was maybe at the base of the initiative, was when we went to a hybrid General Assembly. We were thinking about, well, we traditionally had our travel support scheme for scientists, in part also from the global south or from less economically advantaged countries, to attend in person the General Assembly. And so what could we do for people wanting to attend virtually online, and how could we use this challenge, because obviously it was a challenge to develop an online meeting and to develop a hybrid meeting. How could we also make that into an opportunity to make the General Assembly more inclusive, more diverse? And so that's when we came up with the participation scheme, the participation waiver scheme, where now scientists from economically disadvantaged countries can actually automatically will obtain a full waiver for online participation to the General Assembly. And we have seen participation from countries in the global south pick up significantly through that initiative, and I am very happy to see that, and I hope we can really develop that further. And similarly, and that is not at all my initiative, that came from the Publications Committee, but similar for the publications, as you know, maybe the EGU publishes about 20 scientific journals, which are all open access and open review, that do charge article processing charges to publish in them. But there, similarly, we have put in place a waiver scheme where authors, again, from the global south, from economically more disadvantaged countries, will automatically obtain a full waiver of their article processing charges to publish in EGU journals. And so I think that's where the modern technology, and also where, you know, how both the publishing world and the world of scientific meetings is evolving, but where it can be used for the betterment and for greater inclusion and greater diversity of the meetings, by maybe lowering the thresholds for participants from the global south to participate in these meetings, and also to be able to publish their work. And that's definitely something we want to continue looking into, how to improve that and how to further expand those initiatives.
Yeah, thanks for thanks for having so many initiatives. Yeah, definitely it will promote the participation for the people from the economic weaker section and the people who can't travel even. Yes, definitely it will be also helpful in EDI agenda. So, as an academic leader, maybe you came across different kind of the challenges. So, what do you see as a biggest challenge facing in geosciences community today, and how do you hope to address them?
Okay, well, thank you. That's a really good question, and I think, in my view, we are facing, as a geoscientific community, as a global geoscientific community, there's really three big challenges. They are they're interlinked. They're not independent one of each other. And maybe to start, and they're also at different levels. So to start maybe with the most immediate one, and maybe also the down-to-earth one, that is funding for science. And so we have to assure that as a community we have sufficient funding to do the science that is important, and that is a problem in certain countries. Obviously, we all see what is going on in the United States at the moment, and how difficult the situation has become there. That shows us how quickly also, you know, these fundaments of underneath science can change. Certain countries in Europe are also have some of these issues where funding has become a real problem. Globally, of course, the situation is really quite different. I was fortunate enough to attend the meeting of the Asia and Oceania Geosciences Union in Singapore earlier this year in my role as president of EGU, and I was really struck by the vibrancy of the Asian geosciences community. So that was really nice to see. But that's, I mean, that question is general, and it's obviously important just for our survival as scientists if we're doing our job. But that funding is obviously linked to something that is more general, and that is, I think, the understanding of the importance of the geosciences with decision makers and policy makers. And again, we see that understanding, well, first of all, it's not always there, and it's also under threat. Simply, we can think of the whole issue of anthropogenic climate change and the science of anthropogenic climate change. That is continuously being challenged by basically populist rhetoric and anti-science rhetoric. And so that is also something where we have to be, I think, very clear, where we have to defend our science and defend our communities and defend the scientists who are behind that science, who are sometimes also personally, attacked because of their science. And so there is the outreach to policymakers is extremely important, to make policymakers and decision makers understand the importance of science-driven and fact-driven decisions, and to give them the information that they need to make these science and fact-driven decisions. So that's the second challenge, I think, that we are facing, and that is linked to the first one. And it's also linked to the third one, which is maybe the broadest one, and that is the vision of the geosciences in the broader with the broader public and in the broader society, and how does society view this branch of science and view its usefulness or not. And that is also something that I think we need to continuously work on by targeted outreach activities, by educational activities. And it's also linked to inclusiveness. And often you will see these views of geosciences and geoscientists emerge that are really not quite positive, that are linked to resource extraction that is unsustainable, fossil fuel extraction, issues of colonialism, scientific colonialism, scientific neo-colonialism that are linked, obviously, in many ways to both extraction of energy resources, but also extraction of other resources. And the link to that also the makeup of the community, which at least in Europe and North America is still too dominantly male and white. And so making sure, so working on the view that the general public has on the geosciences, and that the general public also understands the importance of the geoscience and the solutions that geosciences can bring is important, but at the same time also making sure that as a scientific discipline we are representative of the society and of the community, and therefore being as improving our diversity and making sure that we are welcoming and inclusive to a broad range of people is really important. And so I think so, as I said, it goes from the most immediate and the most practical in the funding through the vision or the view that policymakers and decision makers have of the geosciences, and how, as geoscientists, we can inform policymakers and provide them with the information they require, and then link to that also the view of the general public. And so outreach and education is extremely important, but also expanding and improving the diversity and the inclusiveness of the field. So I hope that's sort of a broad overview, but I think those are sort of the challenges that we face.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting so many important aspects, right, from the funding, policy making, and the mitigation and solution-oriented approach of the geosciences, outreach activities, and so many important things to build our inclusive and sustainable future. So, if we can understand, as an academic leader, maybe you face different kind of the you came across the different kind of these setbacks, whether in related to maybe research, funding, or policies. So, as per an experience, could you share some kind of the studies, cases, case studies with you that may be helpful for the ECRs, where the professional challenges or rejection ultimately led to the significant learning, or maybe end up with the unexpected opportunity?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. I'm tempted to answer in two different ways and two different challenges and setbacks. One would be linked to my work in EGU, and then I could give another one maybe more from the research field. We brought this up a couple of times before, but so obviously the pandemic time was a really challenging time for EGU, in particular for organizing the General Assembly. And I had just been nominated to be the chair of the program committee in 2019. I was going to take this up in April 2020. And of course, I had no idea what was coming towards us. And so, so the pandemic really hit, at least in Europe, in February 2020, March 2020. So 2 months really before the General Assembly 2020 was planned, and it became clear that it was not going to happen. And so, so what do we do, right? And my predecessor, as chair of the program committee, decided that, well, we were not going to just, give up on this and just cancel. And so in 2 months' time, she got off the ground the first fully online geoscience meeting. It was quite rudimentary at the time. It was all chat-based, but we had that meeting, and I think it was extremely important at the time for the community to be able to still meet online. And have that scientific exchange and also feel that they were part of a community, which was very difficult for many people during the lockdowns, where people were really basically enclosed in the walls of their own houses or apartments. And then in the 2 years after that, when I took over the role, the first challenge came in 2021, where we still were not able to organize an in-person meeting. So that was a fully online meeting, and that was then run like in video online mode. So there was an enormous amount of work needed to be done to set that up. And we had significant setbacks because the system actually failed during the first day of the conference. And so that was extremely stressful. The year after that, 2022, we were able to organize a hybrid meeting. So that was the first hybrid meeting that we were organizing ever. But there we had the problem that very close to the original date of the meeting, it was still not clear whether Vienna, where the in-person meeting has always been held, whether they would actually allow large meetings. And so we had to decide what to do, either take that risk or not take the risk and push back the meeting in time. And so that's what we decided to do. And so that was also the first time where we had to postpone the meeting for about 6 weeks, which also brought enormous logistical challenges with it. So lots of challenges there, but I think what the opportunity that grew out of it is what I talked about, is the fact that by becoming hybrid, I think the meetings became much more inclusive and allowed people who could not, or for whatever reason would not participate in person, now had an opportunity to participate in the meeting. And so I think that was really the opportunity that came out of there. And I think personally, I think the General Assembly now is much better, richer, more diverse, more inclusive than it was before the pandemic. And so I think we really have taken that opportunity, taken that challenge and turned it into an opportunity. So that's maybe the example on the EGU side. As an example in my own research, I think we can go back to, this may come also partly in response to something we might discuss later on, but what we have seen in the geosciences in general, I think, is a really large expansion of data and a different way of treating data, and we've started seeing more and more like global analyses of data, and that's great, because that's something we could not do even like a few decades ago, and so that opens a big new window of opportunities to treat data differently. The issue with that, of course, is that we still need to understand those data and understand those data in their context. And so there has been quite a large debate in my field over the last decades over the link between climate change, in particular glaciations and erosion rates. Do glaciations lead to larger erosion rates globally, and what are the potential feedbacks and interlinkages between that? And I was working at the time, this is early 2010s, in different projects and different groups, with a group of people who were, well, we were really looking at those questions, and a group of people decided to try and do such a global analysis of thermochronology data, and came up with a a method to analyzing that data, which showed that indeed there seemed to be quite a large increase in erosion rates over the last few million years, over quaternary times. And my hunch had always been that there was an issue with that analysis, and it didn't really yeah, there was something wrong with it, and it was quite visible. It was published in Nature, and so it's quite an impactful study. And it took years for me to work out, what I thought was the issue with that analysis. I worked closely with several close colleagues of mine, and we finally decided to publish a paper where we showed, according to us, what was wrong with that analysis, and that actually you couldn't say from those data what the conclusion of that paper was. And that was very difficult, because you're attacking a quite impactful study, and so you have to be quite sure of yourself, and obviously that is going to lead to reactions, and it's fairly divisive in the field, right? Because people then have to sort of pronounce themselves whether, merely which side they are on, which is a bit silly, because it should be just a scientific discussion. But it did unfortunately get quite personal. However, also thinking about that, okay, how should we do this? How should we move further to really answer those kinds of questions? Led me then to think about what was needed, and led me to write up the ERC proposal that in the end got me this funding from the European Research Council through this advanced grant, and which I set up when I came to Potsdam, and was able to set up the new lab that we are running now, and to generate like these new very high resolution thermochronometric data, and that's been extremely exciting. So there in research we go from a situation that is stressful, that is a negative, finding a negative result, and how do you bring that finding to the public and navigate the reactions that such a finding finds out, to then the opportunity of doing the research that you think might answer the question. And so that's and being able to do some really quite exciting research with a wonderful group of people around you. So again, going from a challenge to an opportunity, but in a different way, and more linked to my direct research field.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing so much interesting and inspiring stories related to your research, academia, capacity building programs. So that is really inspiring, and there are so many learning opportunities for the people who are struggling in such a way. So coming to the end of our list of questions, you can say one of my favorite question. Based on your experience promoting ECRs to your platform, EG platform, mentoring PhD and postdoc. So, what is your most valuable piece of advice that you give to ECRs aiming for a career in research and academia today, where we have so much of competition and interdisciplinary, even the transdisciplinary demand?
Yeah, thank you. I think the last thing you were saying is really important, because I always feel I nearly feel a bit embarrassed giving advice, because I think, as I said very much in the beginning, I think a lot of my career has also been, due to serendipity and luck, and I think unfortunately the situation facing early career researchers today is really much more difficult than it was when I was an early career researcher. And so, me standing there giving advice to people who are facing, I think, much bigger difficulties than I faced, is maybe not quite appropriate. But in any case, having said that, I think what is probably really the most important is do what you enjoy, because you're only really good at doing what you enjoy. And so go to the research that fascinates you, where your curiosity, your interest drives you. Don't worry too much about whether that is relevant or important or whether it will get funded, as long as you have really good ideas and do good work. There are still ample opportunities to do that research and to get funded for it. So I think that's really important. If you think about like which direction do you want to go in your career, the first thing to think about really is, well, what am I really interested in? What do I really enjoy doing? And go there. That's again, for the simple reason that if you do that, then the chance that you're good at it will simply be much better. Having said that, I think it's also really important to have an open mind and an open view, and not get too stuck in your particular research area or research vision. And whenever you have the opportunity to listen to people, give seminars or whatever, go to conferences that are maybe a little bit outside of your field, I think that is extremely profitable. You can learn so much from that, and you can learn to make linkages and just open your view. And then maybe the third thing is open up, be part of the community, and that also means spend maybe some time volunteering, doing something, because that pays back enormously. At least in my experience, I think what the benefits I have had personally from being involved, for instance, in EGU, but also I've been editor for several different journals, and I think the benefits of those kinds of volunteer position, in terms of opening up your views, in terms of getting to know people, getting a network, are enormous and far outweigh the time that you might spend doing that type of volunteer work. So I think that's also, but again, when you go into a volunteer job, like it should really be with the idea that it's something that you want to do, and you want to do it because of the job itself, and not because of the benefits that you might get from them. But it's just, it will pay back to you. These benefits will come, it's probably maybe not the best way going into them thinking about these benefits. Just find something that you enjoy doing, also as a volunteer, and do that. Be active in the community, because you will be noticed, and it will help you. It will help your career and help you as a person as well, I think. So, yeah, if I had some advice to give, it would be that. And it basically boils down to really, follow your interests and do what you enjoy doing most, because that's the way you become a very good scientist, I think.
Thank you so much, Professor, for highlighting so many important advice, right from the focus, research, the interest to follow, open view, collaboration, and to be a part of community, to be volunteer, so many ways in the different communities. obviously this is very much helpful for the ECRs who are wondering for the expert advice, and I think it will be very much helpful to build their career. So now we are coming to the end of the interview, and thank you so much for all such kind of this satisfactory answers. It will be really helpful for the researcher working into this domain. And now I would like to call Pallavi for her concluding remarks. Pallavi, over to you.
Hi, Professor Peter. Thank you once again for joining us in iLEAPS interview series. It was very nice to meet you after EGU 2025. And it was really very exciting to hear about your career life, your professional life, and significant contribution in the scientific society, particularly in the different fields of geosciences. It was very inspiring and motivating to listen about your scientific contributions and your involvements in various leading projects, like one of the prestigious assignment is European Geophysical Union Assembly. Uh, the idea of in EGU, the idea of EDI, especially and outreach programs, would definitely, I think, motivates the ECRs and the young scientists to contribute science in a fine way. And also the role of great debates and union symposia at EGU. We think that it directs and inspires ECRs and scientists about recent advancements in different fields of science, which opens up doors for knowledge exchange and establish the bridge between opinions of ECRs and eminent scientists. I'm also very sure that your career story and achievements will definitely inspire early career researchers to do quality work and motivates the tradition of discovering new ideas that develop and lead to new inventions or discoveries which make the society more comfortable and nice. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much for these very kind words. Thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here and to have this conversation with you. And I hope to see you all in Vienna next early May at the EGU General Assembly.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, sure, Peter.
See you there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I stop the recording and then wish you all have rest of good day. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure.